You're live, Mayor Hudson.
Okay, let's call to order the City Council Parks and Community Service Commission Joint Special Meeting Agenda for April 28th. Before the roll call, the city attorney has an announcement.
Good evening, everyone. The city has adopted procedures for this meeting that meet or exceed the standards set forth in Governor Newsom's Order N-25-20, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference in order to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. I'll ask the clerk now to please conduct the roll call and ask the mayor to recognize me afterward.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Veros.
Here.
Councilmember Zafar.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Here.
Mayor Hudson.
Here.
Student Commissioner Ramesh.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Commissioner Keniston Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic.
Here.
Commissioner Dorlick.
Present.
Commissioner Birnbaum.
Present.
Vice Chair Osland.
Here.
And Chair Lopez Lucy.
Present.
Thank you.
Recognize the city attorney.
Thank you. Based on the responses to the roll call by all councilors and commissioners, the record should reflect that all councilors and commissioners could hear the proceedings clearly. And if there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each council member and commissioner believes, based on voice, facial recognition, or otherwise, that persons representing to be themselves to be either council members or commissioners are who they say they are. Seeing no objection, I will turn the meeting back over to the mayor with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Thank you. As this is a special meeting, the public is permitted to address the city council only on items on tonight's agenda. If you decide to speak at this time, you will not be allowed to speak a second time after the appellant's and applicant's presentation. If you wish to speak at this time under public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom or dial 9 on your telephone. I'm kind of looking at both my annotated and attendance at the same time. I don't see anybody raising a hand yet. When it is your turn to talk and call upon, we will call upon your name if provided. Remarks are limited to, since there's nobody speaking, they're limited to 3 minutes per person, and 60, nobody wants to speak. A clock will be running on the Zoom screen. The speaker's microphone will be muted once the allotted time has expired. You will be given a second or another opportunity once we have heard from the applicant. There is one written comment at this time. I won't read it into the record. The clerk has it. It's from Viera Moore, Inc. And is there any, this is the only one that I have, Christina. Is there any more?
That was the only written comment received for this meeting.
Okay, public comment is closed. Let's move on to the action for the evening. The Joint City Council and Parks and Community Service Commission study session, proposed park at City Village, which is now BR6. It's a development SPA 21-800-1. MJ 21-900-2, DP 21-300-2, AR 20. Who's doing the staff report? Cindy, you got this thing? I don't, all those cute little letters and numbers, you can repeat them if you want.
Okay, great.
Take us up.
Well, thank you so much, City Council and Planning, Parks and Community Service Commissioners. I am glad this evening to be providing a brief presentation on the proposed park development at the City Village project. I will just take a moment here to share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint I've provided. And if you can see the PowerPoint, I'll go ahead and get started. So just an overview this evening, our goal is just to provide you with some background and context of the project, the overview of the project itself, and dive into the park proposal. And then we've provided a series of discussion questions at the end to help guide in our discussion this evening. So just to get us familiar with the location, the property is located within the Bishop Ranch Business Park along Camino Ramon and bound by Executive Parkway and Norris Canyon Road. It's within the North Camino Ramon specific plan area and also within the walking district that the city is currently undertaking. And just to the south of the project area is the newly approved Citywalk development application. Bishop Ranch 6 is a 31-acre site that currently has an existing three-story office complex. The proposal for this site would be 404 total residential units, in addition to a 2-acre park site that is proposed at the corner of Executive Parkway and Camino Ramon, as well as a 1/4-acre tot lot that would be located within the Townhomes neighborhood. The site plan that you see here, oriented to the north of the screen, is Camino Ramon. On the left-hand side of the screen is Norris Canyon Road, and Executive Parkway is on the right-hand side. The proposed park location is the 2-acre park here at the corner of Camino Ramon and Executive Parkway. And the 1/4-acre tot lot is proposed within the center of the neighborhood where the townhomes are currently located. This project, because of the number of applications that have been filed, will go through a very extensive project review process. We have already started our application review with the Housing Advisory Committee, as well as various study sessions with the Planning Commission and with the City Council. The next step would be the Architecture Review Board for the review of architecture, and that's actually scheduled the second week of May. And then currently underway is our environmental analysis and project completeness review. Tonight's meeting is focused on the review of the conceptual park proposal. And then following the review of the project completeness and environmental analysis, we'll be moving into public hearings that are expected to begin this summer. And then public hearings with the City Council would follow after the Planning Commission's recommendation. So in the staff report, there is a lot of background information related to the 2 parks ordinances in San Ramon. The first ordinance is the Parkland Dedication Ordinance, and that's been an ordinance with the city for quite some time. The Park and Recreation Facilities Impact Fee Ordinance, that was adopted just a few years ago. And so those 2 ordinances combined is really what provides the policy direction for how parks are created anytime there's a new development, and then what types of fees and how much those fees are going to be as a result of the new improvements. So taking a step back, the general plan policy has a policy standard for functional parkland space of 6.5 acres per 1,000 residents. And so for every project that has a subdivision map, the developer is required under that Parkland Dedication Ordinance to either dedicate parkland, pay a fee in lieu of park dedication, or potentially a combination of both in order to provide neighborhood and community park facilities. These 2 ordinances are meant to address residents' needs for park facilities and the impacts that are caused by new development. In lieu fees and impact fees collected are then used to fund park development and then other associated costs of providing parks and recreational facilities in San Ramon. So for this particular project, City Village, the Parkland Dedication Ordinance requires a dedication of 5.6 acres of functional parkland. And we use the formula that's established in the Parkland Dedication Ordinance based on the number of units that are being proposed how much square footage of parkland per unit, and then we multiply that by the amount that the Parkland Dedication Ordinance requires. And that's the equivalent of 5.6 acres of new functional parkland that this project would be obligated to provide in accordance with the Parkland Dedication Ordinance. As I mentioned, the ordinance does provide the ability for the city to determine whether the dedication of land on this site of the 5.6 acres would be appropriate, or if all or some of the on-site land dedication is not appropriate, the developer has an option to pay a fee equivalent to the land value. The second fee ordinance, the Park and Recreation Facilities Impact Fee, is paid as a per unit fee, and that's calculated on a per unit basis depending on the type of unit and depending on if it's for sale or a rental project. That fee would then be paid to address the impacts that the development causes for adding additional persons residing in the project. So with this project, the proposal before you this evening is proposing a combination of a parkland dedication and the payment of impact fees. There's a 2-acre park that's located on that southeast corner of the property, along with a 1/4-acre tot lot that's being proposed. Those improvements are valued by the applicant at about $2.2 million. If the city decides to offer a credit for the parkland provided, there's an additional fee of about $6.5 million that could pay out to the city for the additional in lieu fees that have not been met through parkland dedication. The proposal would be that the parks would be maintained by the homeowners association that's established for this neighborhood, but the public would have full access to use the tot lot as well as the 2-acre site. And so as I was looking at the staff report, I know there's a lot of numbers that are written down in the report. And so we thought we'd just try to help you break down what those numbers look like in a table format. So as we mentioned, the 5.63 acres based on the 404 units, that is the parkland dedication acreage that is required of the project. The fee equivalent to that is about $11.7 million. In addition, that second Park and Recreation Impact Fee Ordinance requires approximately $1.7 million in impact fees to meet that fee ordinance. And so in total, the 5.6 acres, or the equivalent of 11.7 million, plus the 1.7 million facilities fee, has a total associated value of $13.4 million. Now, the applicant is proposing the 2.25 acres of parkland. And so when you subtract that from the total 5.63 acres, the unmet parkland obligation is 3.39 acres, which is the equivalent of $6.9 million. And so a combination of the 2.25 acres provided along with the feeing out of the unmet need would mean that in total, fees would be $8.7 million with the two ordinances, and then the proposed 2.25 acres of park that would be offered as part of this project. Now, if the commission and council were to consider the fee credit for the improvements, there may be an additional reduction in the overall amount of fee that's paid by the applicant. And that could be somewhere in the range of $6.5 million, depending on how much credit is provided and how much parkland this council and commission decides is meeting the requirements of the Parkland dedication ordinance. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense of how those fees are broken down. And then I will leave it up to the applicant to provide a little bit more background and information about their park and the design and their thought process as to the location of the park. So I'll just breeze through these next couple of slides here, but you can see that there are various amenities that they've been conceptually designed for the 2-acre park, as well as for the tot lot. And so the discussion questions that we have for you this evening really start at the big picture level. Is how does the commission and the council see the Parkland dedication ordinance being met for this project? Is a fee appropriate? Is a combination of a fee and parkland appropriate? Or is, the obligation of the 5.6 acres, how is that going to be met for this application? And then, a secondary question to that is, does the 1/4 acre tot lot, would that be counted towards the project's credit of parkland dedication? The next question is, once we've answered the question of how should this parkland dedication be met, is then focus on the location of the park. Is the location of the park as it's proposed appropriate? And then if the amount of acreage and the location of the parkland is appropriate, then should there be a credit offered for the improvements that are being proposed? And then, finally, we expect that in the future, after entitlements, there will be some final actual park design that goes into the programming and the real nitty-gritty details of where elements are going to be located. But for tonight, are you comfortable enough to recommend the conceptual plan to move forward so that we can begin that environmental analysis and the entitlement process? So that's my presentation for this evening. I can certainly go back to other slides if you'd like, or I know the applicant also has a PowerPoint that they would like to share as well. So I'd be happy to take questions now or answer them at the end.
Well, let me break this down. First, before we open up the public comments, are there any clarifying questions of staff? First from the commissioners. Is there anyone that has any clarifying questions? And I'm only looking for hands because I don't have all of you on the screen. Panelists, okay, we've got one, and that would be, is it Julia Osland? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, Julia Osland. Thank you.
Osland, you,
Yeah.
and then after you, Commissioner Birnbaum has a question. So you're
Thank you,
first.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Hudson. I think my question is probably for the staff, and I guess for the whole group, is what is the role of the Parks Commission tonight? What are you looking from us?
Cindy, I'm going to dump that on you. I think what you're looking for was the last question on your list, as do we go forward on the approval? But I think the question is deeper than that. It's like, are you looking for us to say the tot lot? Are you looking for us to say there's more? And I'm kind of looking at Julia as I say this, now that everybody's picture's up there. But I mean, what is her question is, what is staff looking for tonight?
I don't know if Debbie, maybe you might want to take this one. I can as well if you'd like.
No. So what we're looking for from this joint session tonight is, weighing in on the park design for the BR6 project. Their concept right now is the 2-acre park on the corner of Executive and Camille Ramon and a 1/4 acre park. Understanding that we are amending a specific plan and moving forward, we just want to have an early read as to, is this park element appropriate for the proposal? Because really the location of the park will really drive the design of the project. So this is a critical turning point in how the applicant will be moving forward in continuing the processing of their application. So really, do you like the park on the corner? Do you like the 2 acres? Do you like the 1/4 acre park in the middle? Is there another combination you're looking for? Other park amenities, really, that's really what the gist of what we're trying to get to tonight.
Thank you, Debbie. And I think my follow-up question to that is, for the process moving forward, what will the Parks Commission's role be in that?
Well, tonight we're trying to get that early feedback on the location of the park, and and a little bit on the design of the park, as Cindy said, to move the environmental review forward. But as with all park designs, once the project is approved, then the design would go back to the Parks Commission for final review and consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Birnbaum and then Ellicott. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Pesek? You're up.
So, Cindy, I'm a little confused about the numbers. You and I had an earlier discussion today about the numbers, and they seem to be different than what you had in the presentation. Can you explain why they're different?
Sure. So there is an attachment to your staff report of numbers of approximately 11.4, but the applicant prepared that document, and it did not include the 2% administration costs that is required of the Parkland dedication ordinance. And so the numbers that you see include an additional 2% of administrative costs that would bump the numbers slightly up. But in the value of the 5.63 acres is equivalent to about 11.7. And those are, I should say, estimates. The way that the Parkland dedication ordinance is written is that it's based on the valuation of the land. And the current valuation that we've chosen for acreage is a $2 million valuation per acre. That number fluctuates and doesn't necessarily, that number is conservative. We've picked $2 million. You'll probably remember with Citywalk just a year or so ago that was about $1.9 million an acre. And so the $2 million is the land value. That number is an estimate of the what's put into the formula. And so the 11.7 million, in looking at just the way that the ordinance is written, that's how the fee breaks down.
So how, as I told you on my phone call, I need just simple numbers. So let's just say if the city decides to collect all fees, then what number, how many millions is the city viewed at collecting for this project if with no credit is given?
Sure. So again, just a reminder that there's 2 fees. One is the Parkland dedication obligation, and one is the Parks and Facilities Impact Fee. The Parks and Facilities Impact Fee is charged on a per unit basis. That fee amount is $1.7 million based on 404 units. So that does not change whether they offer parkland or no parkland. So 1.7 for the Parks and Facilities Impact Fee. And then for the Parkland dedication ordinance, if they were strictly to fee out the 5.6 acres that they're required to provide, that's $11.7 million. So in total, those 2 fees combined is 13.4 million.
So the number is 13.4.
Correct.
Versus what they're proposing right now is a credit and a 6.5 or whatever million payout.
Correct. 6.53 or 6.54 rounded up.
Okay, thank you.
Heidi, your questions? And then Will Dorlich.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One follows up on Commissioner Oslin's question about the process. I understand that from what I think Ms. Chamberlain mentioned, Director Chamberlain, that this will come back to us for review and consideration. Can we, in more concrete terms, explain what will be the approval process for this? And I apologize, I'm a bit of a newbie, and I know we've got Planning Commission, we've got City Council, we've got Parks and Rec. So it sounds like we'll get a chance to see this at some point again. My question is, what is the line of review and ultimately approval and decision-making? That's part one.
Okay, of course. So in a typical review process, if there's a park site involved, we work with the Parks Commission to get a recommendation on the location of the park and some general design elements. And so once we have that recommendation, we provide it to the Planning Commission. In this case, because there's what's called a specific plan amendment or a legislative action, the City Council is also involved in the decision-making process. So the Parks and Community Services recommendation will be carried forward through the public hearing process with the Planning Commission, City Council. If the project is approved, and then as the applicant works through their final designs of the project, including the park, they will then work their way through the Parks Commission with Kathy Hyman and working on that design and getting approved by the Parks Commission.
Thank you. That's exactly what I would like to know. And thank you. Second question is, and you guys can decide where you want to take this on, but as I review this, there's a couple things that are jumping out at me that I want to better understand. And I think given that we're in the early guidance phase, this is the time to find out. How does this really play in with our walking district plans? How does this connect with the larger plan, connecting the different parts of that community, that community allowing for multi-use on the paths? And I imagine biking, running, walking, I even imagine rollerblading and strollers. So I want to better understand this. I see private park and I see this development, and it starts looking like an insular dedicated space to just this housing. And I guess my understanding, and I'm trying to understand, is this supposed to, do we want it to, are we planning to have it connect to the larger walking district? And does that perhaps have an influence on the design so that maybe it doesn't appear to be so insular? And by that same token, the words private park, I understand it looks like it would be proposed to be maintained by the HOA. It seems like it's meant to be kind of private, but also open to the public. And I just feel like that I'd like to really better understand before we suggest this is ready to go to next phase. And which is it that we really want it to be? So again, you don't have to answer it right now, however makes sense in the process. Thank you.
Will, then we'll go to council members.
So are we ready to talk about the park?
Well, no, we're asking clarifying questions, then we'll open public comment.
Okay, because mine's just about the park. I think the presentation was pretty detailed and covered most of what we would need to see. From a process standpoint, this is very similar to what we did with Faria, because even when the community was still in planning, we put the park together and we put the park, kind of the outlines of the park in place. An overview of the amenities, and not specifically, but a good overview of what should be there. And this is, I think, a similar process if I see it correctly. So if it's not appropriate for my comments on the park at this time, I will wait until after the esteemed council members weigh in.
Okay. Heidi, too, you wanted to speak before we get to council members?
Oh, did I get to Heidi too? Okay.
Well, Heidi once spoke.
I guess it could be worse. They could be calling us thing one and thing two. So we'll take it. I actually will have some questions of the applicant, Mayor. So I assume once they give their PowerPoint, we'll be able to ask questions then. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
A public comment. Council member Zafar.
Yeah, I had one quick clarifying question. I thought when we got the initial presentation, this was somehow going to tie in with the Citywalk Parkway. Basically what Heidi was talking about as well, the bikeable, walkable path. Is that no longer a part of this? Because I didn't see it in the presentation, and the biking, walking Everybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Sort of.
Lauren, can you respond to that?
Yes. So along Camino Ramon, the Citywalk master plan has this parkway concept. The applicant has proposed an extension of the parkway along Camino Ramon from the park up to Norris Canyon Road. It is not the full 60 feet that Sunset was doing as part of Citywalk, but it is sufficient to provide a landscape buffer and wider pathways. And if we get a chance to look at the more detailed plans, you can probably start to see that. But yes, the Camino Ramon Parkway is extended up to Norris Canyon Road and around the corner as well.
Okay, so not the full loop or anything, but just part of it.
There's no full loop currently proposed. That doesn't prohibit, circulation back through the neighborhood. These are privately owned and maintained streets. That doesn't prohibit access. Same with the sidewalks within the community.
Okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
think what has happened, a good point, Sabina, when they hear you ask that question under public comment, it would be wise if somebody is right now writing down some notes to answer what your question was. But do you have a second one?
No, that's the clarification I needed.
Okay, well, hopefully we will get that during public comment. Councilmember Veros and then Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. So is this 2.2 million for amenities? Is it for both 2 acre and 0.25 acre park? Is it for both of them, amenities included?
The way that the applicant has prepared their information, the 2.2 million estimate that they've provided is for the park improvements and the amenities of all 2.25 acres.
2.2, okay. And when we say, is that amenities, are you saying like including the development of the park?
It may be better for the applicant to speak to what they're seeking the credit for, but the way that their application is structured, it does include the land preparation grading for the 2 acre site to prepare it, and then the amenities that are provided within that park facility itself.
Oh, okay. Because when I see it as amenities, for me, it looks like more like a structures and play structures and stuff like that, not for the development of the park itself. But I'll wait for the developers' feedback on that. Thank you.
Okay. Member Armstrong, and then Sabina, do you have another question also?
Not clarifying question right
Okay,
now.
go ahead, Mark.
No, I had the same question that Councilmember Veros had. Thank
Okay.
you.
Very good. Then if everybody's got their blue hand down, let's move to public comment. It is open. If you wish to speak under public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or dial 9 on your telephone. When it's your turn to talk and call upon a name, if provided, we will call upon a name. If provided, remarks are limited to, I keep looking on attendees. What have I have? I must have.
Mayor Hudson,
Yes.
I believe we have the applicant in the audience we would like to bring in first before we take public comment.
Okay. They can do, I mean, actually, they are part of public comment, I think. Martin, am I missing something? But go ahead, bring the applicant in and let's do it. I will have words with our city attorney about the annotated wording. Scott, did you have a question before we bring him in of staff? You're on mute.
I wanted to hear from the applicant before we took public comment.
I just figured he's part of public comment, but go ahead. Applicant, you're up. Who's up first? Christina, do you have a name? That I have nothing up here, or is Cindy going to introduce Jerry?
Cindy will introduce.
Go, Cindy.
Sure. So I'll actually start with Denise Cunningham with Summerhill Homes, and then she can provide you with the team that she has.
Cool. You're up, Denise.
All right. Good evening, Council and Park Commissioners. I'm Denise Cunningham, Vice President of Development with Summerhill Homes. And I'd like to thank you for your time this evening and also thank staff for their continued efforts. We do also have Robert Freed, Summerhill's CEO, and Kevin Ibrahimi, our Senior Vice President of Development, and we are all available to answer questions. I believe Jerry Engen with Sunset is also available. So I'd like to start with a brief introduction to Summerhill Homes. Summerhill is a private home builder. We've been in business for over 45 years, and during this time, we've delivered over 6,000 homes. We're a local company, and our headquarters are right here in San Ramon in Bishop Ranch 8. And if we could, Cindy, do you have the slides that you could pull up? Great. So this is a location map, and Cindy touched on this briefly, but this shows the project site, which is on Camino Ramon between Norris and Executive Parkway, and the greater areas and amenities nearby. The Transit Center and the Iron Horse Trail are just to the east for easy access to transit and the multi-use trail. And the property is just north of the Citywalk master plan, which some of the commissioners and council have asked about. And I'll go into that a little later, how our project connects to that. This is just north again of the Citywalk master plan, and we do extend that walking plan all the way to Norris Canyon, the meandering trail. So there will be continuity there. And this is a really good example of infill development in the city core and providing high quality homes near jobs and transit and within walking district to retail and services. Next slide, please, Cindy. So the site plan includes a total of 404 homes with 3 unique product types. We have single family court homes, detached row homes, and attached townhomes. And this mix of housing types really creates diversity with the housing for a wide range of buyers. And as envisioned in the North Camino Ramon specific plan, a neighborhood park was identified for this block. And our earlier plans actually had the park more centrally located, more interior to the development. And after consultation with staff in the city, we moved this to the outer edge at Camino Ramon and Executive Parkway. And we feel this is an ideal location for the public park. I mean, although it will be privately owned and maintained, but completely publicly accessible. It provides good visibility and public access. It's further from Norris Canyon, which is a little more busy with traffic. It complements the vision of the walking district by extending the meandering paths and gathering nodes along Camino Ramon and Executive Parkway, and can bring those into the park as well. It's also closer to the adjacent office park, which provides access for the nearby businesses to use the park during the daytime hours. Next slide. So a little more detail on the housing types. This is the court homes. These are 2- and 3-story detached single-family homes that surround a shared motor court. 3 and 4 bedrooms with private yards, and some of the plans have rooftop decks. And the court homes are grouped along the westerly edge of the property. You can see the key map at the bottom of the screen. And this rendering is taken from Executive Parkway at the corner of the park. Next slide. And this is the row homes. The row homes are 3-story, detached 3- and 4-bedroom homes with yards and shared drives. They have shared driveways accessing the garages in the rear and paseos in the front of the homes. And these paseos also serve for pedestrian connectivity throughout the community. So it extends through the community and also with connections to Camino Ramon. And the row homes are grouped along the southerly end of the property along Camino Ramon. The rows also front the entire length of the park, as shown in this rendering, which is also taken from the park at Executive Parkway. Next slide, please. So the townhomes, these are traditional attached 3-story townhomes with balconies, and similar to the row homes, they have shared drives for garage access and paseos in the front of the homes. And the townhomes are grouped together on the northern edge of the property along Norris Canyon and Camino Ramon. And all of the homes in the community have 2 car attached garages and generous balconies. Next slide, please. So the neighborhood park, this is an artist rendering of the neighborhood park. The view is from Executive Parkway. And you can see the row homes at the top that face the park, activating this public space. We have enhanced meandering walkways extending along the perimeter, again, to enhance the connectivity that's envisioned as part of Citywalk and the future walking district. Next slide. And here's the preliminary design. This includes proposed park amenities. We, in collaboration with the city, worked with our design team on some of the suggested uses in the park, including pickleball courts, children's play areas, a large lawn area for informal activities, and then also gathering nodes and passive uses. And we do look forward to working with the city and the Park Commission to program the final uses in this park. Next slide, please. And here's an imagery board showing concepts for the active areas at the park. Those are more at the top of the page. And this also includes passive features at the landscape buffer, which is at the edges of the property along Camino Ramon and Executive Parkway, which also serves as bioretention. Next slide. So this is the additional park, the tot lot area that we've come up with. And at the request of the Planning Commission, we were directed to look for more opportunities to find additional space on the other side of the property, more towards the northern end, near the townhomes. And in this area, you can see the townhomes are at the top of the screen and the row homes at the bottom. The townhomes are also on the right. And so we worked with our design team to expand this space. And we did that by removing the perpendicular parking along A Street. We still exceed our guest parking requirements. So I think that was all a good call. And then we were also able to mix our housing of the row homes and put some of the less deep homes along the bottom of this slide, which really allowed us to open the space and get amenities in this area. So we've incorporated these changes and we've gained another 1/4 acre of park space that includes a tot lot, trellises, picnic benches, and a barbecue area. And then this space is easily accessible to the greater public. A Street to the left of the screen extends all the way from Executive Parkway to Norris Canyon. So again, those are open to the public and anyone can use those accesses. And you can also access the park through the multiple paseos. Next slide. So that we've had some discussion about the park being privately maintained and owned, but open to the public. And this is a concept that is used in more and more cities because the public and the city get the benefit of a new public park without the ongoing maintenance obligations. And similar to how the private streets are maintained but open to the public, these budgets are accounted for in the HOA budget, and which is reviewed and approved by the Department of Real Estate to ensure that there are funds adequate for short-term and long-term maintenance. And then similar to parks in other cities, we also provided the letter from Vieira Moore, which is one of the HOA companies that manages several communities where there are privately owned and maintained public parks, to provide some more information on how that works and how it's managed in the covenants for the community. So in conclusion, this plan brings the following benefits to the city by expanding the connectivity with enhanced pedestrian and bicycle connections. It delivers a fully improved neighborhood park and additional open space. And in lieu of providing just dedication of a 2-acre neighborhood park, we're proposing to provide a full turnkey park, which is why we are seeking the 2.2, which is an estimate, million in construction costs to actually improve the park. And then this also provides San Ramon the benefits again of new parks without the added maintenance responsibility. And it also generates $6.4 million, an estimate of fees for the city's park program. So we feel it provides a nice balance of parkland and fees. And Cindy, if you wanted to go, I think it's slide 13, 2 more slides down, I could talk a little about one more up, go back. This one. This is a good example of the connectivity of the Citywalk master plan. You can see we've overlaid this on the right of the screen, and the project site is to the left. And the connectivity extends with a meandering walk and a larger sidewalk all the way down from Executive Parkway to Norris Canyon. And the streets as well. You can see A Street, which extends from Executive Parkway, also through Norris Canyon. And what you can't see, because it's such a small scale, is the paseos, again, throughout the community for public access. So that, I think, addresses many of your questions and concludes our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions and listen to your feedback. Thank you.
Mayor Hudson, you're on mute.
Isn't that where you want me? Is there anyone else you wanted to speak, Denise, or anyone wanted to jump up and volunteer before we open up questions? Seeing nobody jump for it. Jerry, you want to sit back and are you ready to just nothing to say? You're good? Okay. Council member Zafar.
I'll say a couple words, sorry.
Oh, good.
I was slow reaching my mute button.
Okay.
So I just want to say that Sunset, we've worked very closely with Summerhill through this whole process. We picked Summerhill because of their reputation and the quality of which they develop their communities, and they're obviously a local developer. They're not going anywhere. And so we've been really pleased with the level of knowledge of the market, the quality of the design that they put forward that is commensurate with what we've done in Bishop Ranch throughout the years and how we've approached Citywalk. And so it's a plan that creates a great mix of for sale product, which is great add to the core. And they've done a terrific job in working with staff, working with the director of the parks with Kathy, and with the planning commission, and they've been responsive all the way through this and been very pleased with where they are with this, and are very supportive of the approach that they've taken in the design of the parks and the overall plan.
Good. Okay, we're going to go in reverse order this time. We'll start with the council members. Council member Zafar, and then I believe you still had a question, Vice Mayor Perkins, that you were waiting for now, or are you good? Okay.
Later.
Go ahead.
And Denise, quick question. So the last slide that you shared with us, how wide are those pathways?
I believe the sidewalks are 8 feet. I'm sure someone on my team will correct me if I misspeak. And we have a setback that varies from 35 to 40 feet along that frontage.
Okay. And are there bike lanes along that pathway as well, or no?
It's an open sidewalk and an enlarged sidewalk, so it's not striped for bikes. I think the bikes are also included along Camino Ramon.
I will tell you that the Iron Horse Trail was set up to be 8 feet wide with a foot on either side when we originally did this back when dinosaurs roamed the earth or whatever it was. I'm sorry.
How wide is the Iron Horse Trail, Mayor Hudson?
Pardon?
How wide is the Iron Horse Trail?
8 feet with a foot on either side. That you see that quarter minus, half minus, whatever pathway. But and I'm not sure if when Alex Marin did his section, that was actually separated from the rest of the trail coming down from the north, if he might have made that sidewalk a little bit wider. But when you take a look at the asphalt, it's supposed to be 8 and 1 and 1. Anyway, Vice Mayor Perkins, did you have a question? I'm sorry, you were on mute.
Not right now.
Okay. Council members first, Veros, then Armstrong. No, Armstrong, then Veros. This time we'll mix it up. Mark, go ahead. You're first.
Okay, thank you. As you were just describing the meandering trail, I might have misunderstood you, but were you just describing what's essentially a street running through the property?
No, we have a street that is an additional north-south connection with sidewalks on both sides. But along Camino Ramon, we have a generous setback and meandering sidewalk trail in 8-foot width.
Okay, all right. And then the paseos, these are what, just short little access points throughout the development coming in?
We have the paseos in between the row homes and the townhomes. They line the entire frontage Camino Ramon, and there are 4 connection points to Camino Ramon throughout and to the meandering walk that way, and they also run through the entire community as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Councilmember Rose.
So the big park, the 2-acre park, is there any reason why it is picked as a 2-acre, one single park per whole, other than that 0.25, right? Rather than making multiple small parks, like just want to understand the rational reason behind it. I'm sure you have some good reason, but wanted to understand.
I think there's a few reasons. 2 acres is the size of a neighborhood park, which was identified in this area in the specific plan. It's also a size to put some meaningful uses and amenities in.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Dorlick, you've been burning with some questions. I can see it.
No, I think all my questions have been answered. I think it's a very synergistic development project with Citywalk. I think Jerry mentioned the fact that they work very well together. They're extending the walking district and also providing access, through to Norris Canyon. I think the location of the park is the right location because it's on the less trafficked Executive Parkway, and even will be less traffic with Bishop Brand 6 gone. And the 2 acres is appropriate within the style of development that it is, because this is more, just like Citywalk is, more of an urban style, smart growth development. The parks are accessible by the public, but, mostly going to be for the service of the homeowners in the community here. I don't think anybody's going to, drive from Windermere to come down to this park, just as these folks aren't going to, drive up. They go to Central Park, they go to other areas, and the tot lot is very much in conjunction with, the smart growth development. So overall, it seems like a really good plan. The amenities that are on it, can be changed out as we move forward in looking at the specific amenities, similar, as I mentioned, with Faria. But I would say this is a great plan. We get a park that is appropriate and will work for the residents. And it will also bring additional units into San Ramon in an area where it's not impacting existing neighborhoods, which will help us reach some more arena numbers. And I would say it's pretty much a go. We get some money for the parks, and they even had shade structures in the pictures, which is a pet project. So I think it's well defined. I think it's well executed. I think it blends in. I think it's synergistic. It looks great from my perspective.
Okay, let's stay with the commissioners and then we'll go back to Councilmember Armstrong. How about let's start with Roberts, Birnbaum, then Lopez Lucy. Scott, you're up.
Thanks, Mayor Hudson. And thanks, Denise, for the presentation. My question is very similar to Mr. Armstrong, in that our information actually that we went through talks about paseos and sidewalks. And so I just want to make sure, I know that you sort of answered the question about the paseo, but I just want to make sure for the record the difference between the paseo and the sidewalks, because that's what I read. I was reading both paseo and sidewalks. I wanted to make sure I understood the difference, because access, I believe, is a really important topic for this discussion this evening. And I just want to make sure that I understand the difference between the two.
Cindy, would it be possible to bring the screen back up? The overall site? There we go. So there's a driveway at the top of the screen. That's the main entrance off of Camino Ramon, and there's a sidewalk on both sides. The entire length of the perimeter along Norris Canyon, Executive Parkway, and along Camino Ramon include this meandering sidewalk, and it's got the greater setback along Camino Ramon. The North and South Street towards the bottom of the screen, the main access there has a sidewalk also on both sides of the street. And then the paseos, those are actually in between the buildings, right where exactly, thank you, Cindy. So they're in between, and they provide access from Camino Ramon into the community. And they also extend throughout the community, providing access. It would be towards your left where the townhomes are, the other paseos. So this is what I would refer to as the paseos. They're walking path and also provide entrance to the front doors of those homes.
So the paseos seem to be more, I guess, neighborhood centric. I mean, for the residents of the area.
Well, for your front door, but again, we have 4 locations along Camino Ramon where there's stairs off of the meandering path, so that the community can enter and leave the park or the new homes.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
I would just do this as a reference. I don't think it's the same thing because nothing's the same thing. But the presentation, should never talk and try and remember a name. I forgot, the guy died in the middle of the development. Hicks, the old Kodak building when we did it. One side of both sides actually had these kind of paseos or just some areas in between. You don't even notice they're there, but people will move across them. Part of it's parking area and it's blended in. And that's kind of what I'm seeing also out in Doherty Valley, in some of the areas where, you know, everybody's nodding their head so they see whatever. And, you know, you can look at a picture and kind of get a feel for it, but if you don't walk through these things, it's different. And that's what I kind of feel like when I look at this. So if somebody's questioning that, even between now and when it really hits where the rubber meets the road and you're going to make a real vote, take a look at a couple of these things. Don't wait until the next election. But in any case, did that get your question answered, Scott? And we'll move on to.
It did. Thank you, Mayor Hudson.
Okay, I believe Commissioner Birnbaum had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Hudson. I'm trying to understand the process right now. Yeah, are we just asking questions now, or are we providing?
Yeah, we're asking questions now. Then we'll open up the public comment, and then we'll be discussing it. Is the way I'm seeing it. Do you want something different?
No, I'm just trying to make sure that I understand it, and hopefully we all follow that process.
Oh no, there's discussion coming. It's we're trying to get the information out, and then the public will have questions also, I'm sure. But at this point, are there just questions of we had started with staff and now of the presentation that you have? No questions? Nope. Then we will go to Carol Lopez Lucy.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. Thank you for the good presentation. It clarified a lot of things. But I want to be clear on one thing, is on the amenities that you're providing. Is that just to get the park graded and everything? That doesn't include any items that you're going to put in the park or anything. Is that correct?
No, in fact, that includes, again, it's an estimate because the park isn't completely programmed and built out, but it's an estimate including the amenities that we're showing in the park. So that includes pickleball courts and a tot lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Heidi Keniston Lee, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. One question is, I know that there's some future programming of this space for the 2-acre park, but is there intention to incorporate a restroom in that area, Denise?
We don't show that in the current design, but that's something we can certainly discuss as we move forward with the programming.
Yeah, perhaps especially in light of the fact that it'll be open to the public is something for us to sort of keep on the radar screen to look at. Another question I had was with regard to the fiscal responsibility of the HOA. I'm curious, I know you make a point of saying, you are transparent with home buyers, that it's in the CCNRs, that they have this, the HOA has a fiscal responsibility to maintain the park, and that you've sort of blazed the trail and done this at other developments. Can you tell me, have there been any issues that have arisen with complaints about heavy usage of the park by folks who are not residents? And has there ever been any legal action brought by the HOA to stop that fiscal responsibility?
I'm not aware of any, but I can certainly, do some research internally and get back to
Yeah. I think one of our tasks is to really look forward. We know we have a very park friendly, Jerry can tell you, a very park friendly community. And I think that, a lot of folks would love this, 2-acre park, but we want to anticipate usage as it relates to resident attitudes, and we want to sort of anticipate and nip that in the bud. So I'd be curious to know, I don't know, Martin, if you've looked into this, anticipating this meeting, and know of any precedent setting issues, but that would be something I would want to think ahead through. And let's see here. I think those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Heidi. We have one more or two more. What happened? Oh, there you are. Now they're just adding up. Councilmember Veros, do you have another question?
Yeah. So once this 2-acre park is going to build and become like public park, right? So are we going to add this into our parks list? This is more like question for Kathy, and are we going to allow our residents to rent it like any other park if they need it?
I would assume if we ended up putting a group picnic area, that would be the case, but many of our little neighborhood parks don't have group picnic areas, so they're more drop-in use.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, and Will Dorlich, you had another question?
Well, I was just going to speak to the HOA question.
Yes.
Since I deal with HOAs on a daily basis. I mean, there are legal requirements that the state has set out for homeowner associations, for reserve requirements, for all the facilities that they provide maintenance for. So for example, roofs on any kind of home that are attached, they're contiguous roofs, so they have to have a maintenance and they have to have certain levels of reserve by law. So if they sign up for maintaining the park, that's going to be a reserve account underneath their budget, in their reserve budget, which is open to public access. And they have to, abide by that. So there would be funds set aside in a reserve account specifically for maintenance of the park. And again, that's by state law.
Mayor Hudson, may I ask one more follow-up question of Denise?
I don't know. You might have to go ahead.
Thank you. So Denise, with regard to the parkway, I want to make sure that I clearly understand what the plan is. And this Cindy might want to weigh in on this as well, or any of the staff members. So currently I pulled up the walking master plan, and that was on the website, and it shows the parkway reaching just past where the 2-acre park would be in terms of a proposed parkway. Am I understanding correctly that you guys would continue the parkway within the vision of what the city has all the way down to Norris Canyon Road down to where Norris Canyon Road reaches Bishop Ranch, and then again coming back up to touch Executive Parkway. Do I understand that correctly? Based on the chart, based on the graphic that you pulled up, Denise?
Yeah, the setback, we have one exhibit we could kind of show. I think it's slide 13, Cindy, that shows a cross section of the access points at Camino Ramon. But we do have the large setbacks along Camino Ramon. And we extend the sidewalk all the way. So here, this is a good example of the meandering sidewalk. And, we're exploring right now whether that stays, at this grade, or if it meanders a little higher into up the hill, which we're looking at and exploring right now. And then there's 4 of these access points that would take you into Paseos. So that's just an example, because I know that question had come up earlier.
Right.
So the extended setback of 35 to 40 feet runs the entire length of Camino Ramon up to Norris Canyon. And then at Norris Canyon, we have a smaller sidewalk because there's just more constraints in that area. So it's not the 40-foot setback. I think we're closer to, I think it's about, is it 20 feet in that area?
30.
Right, because currently we have a rather small sidewalk going down Norris Canyon, and,
right.
I believe along Bishop Drive, that your graphic would lead us to believe that the same level of parkway space would be continued from Executive Parkway down Camino Ramon and all the way around, as Councilmember Safar mentioned, sort of completing that loop and keeping that connectivity. So I just wanted to clarify, what you're telling us then is that there could be some width difference between the portion on Camino Ramon and Norris Canyon and Bishop Ranch.
Yes, and that was just a cross section of Camino or of Norris Canyon. So that's more of a 30-foot setback, where it's 35 and 40 all along Camino Ramon. And with the park frontage, really extends the majority of Executive Parkway. So that's a very broad area.
And do you feel that all of the parkway areas on all of those surrounding thoroughfares, that they would be sufficient to accommodate, for example, seating, perhaps shade? Would they, at the very minimum width, it would be able to accommodate, say, seating?
I think absolutely on Executive Parkway and Camino Ramon, and we can certainly explore if there's opportunities for that on Norris as well.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add some clarity because there seems to be some confusion a little bit. Unlike Citywalk and around the BR 2600, where we're taking the parkway all the way around to Bishop Drive, we own all of that contiguous land and we're able to do that. For Summerhill, they only own, this small portion where Executive Parkway and Norris Canyon go down, so they can't really extend that parkway to reach Norris, to reach Bishop Drive. They're only 20% of the entire length of the road, and there aren't continuous sidewalks I believe on both sides of the street on Executive and Norris, and so it would be going from somewhere to nowhere. So the biggest thing that they've done is extended the parkway along Camino Ramon, which is the important connection as part of the walking district. While they're putting sidewalks and they'll have large trees and all of those things on Norris and Executive, they cannot continue the same kind of parkway system that would take you all the way to Bishop.
So their concept is that the connectedness then comes from going through the development. Is that correct?
Cindy,
Well, no, it's not the connectedness along Camino Ramon, but
Right.
going west towards Bishop Drive, they would have to cross the street and get on the parkway that's
Right.
on our property to make that complete connection.
Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions.
I think Cindy has some additional, and then we'll go to Commissioner Roberts. I think you're
Actually, as you were talking through your question, I started to understand some of the points that you were making as far as Norris Canyon Road. So one of the things that you don't see on this plan As I just showed, there's a cross section that shows this new sidewalk on Norris Canyon Road. That's that 30-foot right of way that we saw on Norris Canyon. But years ago, well, I should say currently, there is no sidewalk on that southern Norris Canyon roadway. So at Camino Ramon, if you were to try to go west towards the overpass, the Norris Canyon overpass, there's no sidewalk on the south side of Norris Canyon Road. There's a sidewalk on the north side where 24 Hour Fitness is. And so part of this project would include a new sidewalk along the Norris Canyon Road frontage in front of BR6. But there's also a requirement that the city put in place years ago for the Toyota site. And there's actually a sidewalk deferred agreement that we have for Toyota. That was written back when Toyota expanded, over 10 years ago, that at some point, if there was ever a connection on the Bishop Ranch 6 property, that Toyota would be responsible for creating the additional connection. So there will actually, as part of the ultimate improvements on that south side of Norris Canyon Road, actually the ability to connect Camino Ramon to Bishop Drive.
Okay.
Wait a minute, time out. Scott, go ahead, ask your questions, but.
I took my hand down.
Okay.
Cindy covered it.
Yeah, I want to, Cindy, when you start talking about BR6, let me get into panelists to see who else is speaking. Heidi, your hand's still up, or you? Okay. I want to be sure we're talking about the Camino Ramon that's we all know in San, not the Camino Ramon that could go through Crow Canyon at Camp Commons at some time to hook up with Norris Canyon, right?
So
we're not talking about that future.
No, let me just share my screen because I pulled up an aerial photo so that you can kind of see what I'm detailing. So hopefully this helps. But right now, this is Camino Ramon. These are the 3 buildings on Bishop Ranch 6. Eventually, this sidewalk on Camino Ramon will be improved. The paseos that we talked about entering from Camino Ramon here. Mm-hmm. Currently, there's no sidewalk. The sidewalk you can see just ends at Camino Ramon and Norris Canyon. And there's no sidewalk all the way to Bishop Drive until you get to the Bishop Ranch veterinary, property kind of in that corner there. Years ago, when Toyota did their expansion on this property, the city actually put a deferred improvement agreement that required a sidewalk to be connected from the corner of Bishop Drive to the extent of the Toyota site. And that was recorded as a future dedication. Because at the time, Bishop Ranch 6 was not proposing any development, we had expected that this deferred improvement would be at some point in time, if BR6 were to develop, that connection could eventually come through. And so now that this portion of the development is being proposed to be enhanced with a new sidewalk, we'll be able to also require of Toyota the deferred improvement to make that sidewalk connection all the way to Bishop Drive.
Okay, good. All right, the public comment is open. Let me make sure I haven't missed somebody here. Let me read it one more time. If you wish to speak under public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or dial 9 on your telephone. When it's your turn to talk, we'll call your name. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person and a clock will be running on the Zoom screen. I still can't get anybody from the attendees to talk. Is there anyone that wishes to speak under public comment? Going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. It's now before the council and the commission for discussion. Don, you look like you were just dying to get out there earlier. You have the floor and you're on mute.
Well, thank you, Mayor Hudson. I probably will sound controversial, but that's just the nature of me. So before I get into my specific comments regarding this project, I'd like to provide some context regarding my remarks. As a Parks Commissioner, I view my role as one that needs to consider the impact of each project will have on the entire community. Over the past 2 years plus, the Parks Commission has developed a 10-year strategic plan that has identified projects and potential park locations that are needed to meet the overall needs of the entire community. Several of these parks have been on the books for development for more than 20 years, actually some for 30. During the Citywalk Parks discussion, 2 of these parks were called out as priority development parks, the Woodlot and Henry Ranch. The 10-year master plan also identified Crow Canyon Gardens as one of the parks in our system that required renovation. All of these parks have one major roadblock to being completed. It's funding. Funding by new developments like City Village will be critical to moving these projects forward. Now let us look at the current proposal for the City Village development. They are proposing a 2.25 acre developed park land for credit of approximately $6.5 million in reduction of fees from the estimated $13.4 million that this project would be owed the city. One might say some parkland as an important, one might say having some parkland as part of this development is good urban planning. And we have a city master plan and that desires to have parks in local communities. I would contend that the city has met that need for this development with having over 80 acres of parks within a 1 mile radius of this development and 5 acres of parks plus 2 lakes just across the street from the development. The city can ill afford giving away $6.5 million in park development fees that could go directly into the funding these 3 projects mentioned above. These parks have been promised to the current residents for years. For these reasons, my answer to the first question that Cindy proposed is that we should answer no to the proposed 2.25 acre private park and $6.9 million fees and request that the developer provide the funds in cash. What the developer does with the 2.25 acres is not a Parks Commission decision, but I believe it should be influenced by the City Council and Planning Commission. How this development fits within the Walking District Master Plan, and we've talked about that, and developing open space within the development are items that should be discussed by both the City Council and the Planning Commission, but not the Parks Commission. Thank you.
You're on mute, Mayor Hudson.
I know you love doing that, Sridhar. Heidi Kinniston-Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, well, I am quite familiar with Bishop Ranch 6, especially the parking lots, as that on the weekends is where I would teach my child how to drive. So I did spend some time there today. No cars around, completely empty. I did spend some time today contemplating the project. I've also watched every public meeting where this development has been considered. I've been pleasantly pleased to see that it has been well thought out and well received generally by folks. So that's a good positive point from which to start. My comments and questions really surround 3 different areas. Again, we talked about the fiscal responsibility of the HOA, whether there's pushback. Again, I would love to hear back from the applicant as to whether we're going to potentially see, if we move forward with the private park with public access, if in the future we're going to see an issue arise from that. That is a concern for me. The connection to the walking district master plan is an important thing. I feel like It's a delicate balance that we walk when we are dealing with city interests and developer interests. But I feel knowing how important this walking district is to our community, is to our leadership, I feel it's essential that any developer works closely with us to realize that vision, and that we have a consistent look and feel when we make these connections. Part of our Parks Master Plan talks about interconnectedness, and developers, I would hope, and I am pleased actually to see that the applicant embraces that concept. So I think that's great, but it's up to the city to make sure that that partnership is successful. With regard to the tot lot, frankly, I am not certain that the tot lot merits the credit that's being sought. I feel it's in the developer's own best interest to have some green space over in that corner of the development. I can't imagine putting forth a lopsided project like that. And in fact, I feel if additional credit was being sought, we might look at expanding that tot lot. I know there's a trick to trying to find extra space. That point is not lost on me, but perhaps we look at a second tot lot. Currently, the way they're proposing the tot lot, it is certainly within the parameters of the size of what tot lots would be. But I would like to see that explored a little bit further. And I don't know that I would want to give away that additional credit, though I am pleased to see that they plug that in. That is good. A couple more thoughts. On the 2-acre park amenities, I know that we will be approached by the applicant with some concepts and staff about programming and amenities. However, I did spend some time in Central Park today to get some inspiration on what we might see for that park, the 2-acre park, if we were to move forward. I do want to hear back on whether a restroom would be considered. And I do have a question, but I'll get to that last. I do like the meadow feel, the meadow concept and vibe that's being proposed. I especially like that given the current pandemic, and that hopefully will resolve itself, but we'll also always need that open space, that ability to sort of have those, socially distanced capable spaces. Given the development's location in a business park, I feel like it would be important to look at what the rec folks call adult recess options, right? Because kids will hopefully be back in school during the day. So maybe the local businesses want to go there and do team building. Maybe they want to do, one of them. I know pickleball could be one of them. I personally wouldn't be coordinated enough to play the pickleball, but that adult recess option. Also, perhaps things that double as things that teens can do, because I think communities are always struggling with how do we engage our teens with healthy activities. So maybe there are, and we'll work through the detail, the nitty-gritty, but there are things that we could plug in that fit both of those needs. When I was at Central Park, I was looking at a gentleman playing basketball in the half basketball court. I don't know if there's space or if that's something that would be a good use. I'm a big advocate of sufficient pathway seating, especially along the walking district parkways for seniors. Much like Commissioner Dorlick, I am pleased with the plans for shade. That's a big thing in our community. So thank you for thinking of that. Also, I am eager to see if there will be any inclusive or ADA features in the park were we to move forward with it. I think that's very important and a great opportunity for any park being developed these days. So I'm not sure that I would award the extent of credits that are being asked. If there is a way, if we wanted to perhaps, as I said, just to reiterate this last point, to invest in a little bit more pocket parks, maybe an additional pocket park, or if some of that credit is used toward really enhancing a parkway that brings the connectedness together, that would be something I would be open to looking at. And also, again, just to reiterate, I want to know what the realities of this business model of having the HOA assume responsibility for a public park, what it entails. But I do want to compliment you, Denise. Every presentation that you guys have done, I really appreciate. You guys are organized, you're on it, you're receptive. And so I'm confident that this will be brought to a really successful conclusion. Thank you, Mayor Hudson.
Scott Perkins. Now you guys got me paranoid and looking at my mute button.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Heidi, very much. I agree that the credit for the tot lot gives me pause. I believe that we have a policy that you know, there are a couple of tot lots around town, and there are some that are, you know, maintained by HOAs and things like that. So I'm not a big fan of giving credit for the tot lot. I'm grateful it's there, and I think your residents will be grateful it's there. But I don't see that it serves the San Ramon public that well. Whereas the one on the corner at Camino Ramon and Executive Parkway clearly can serve the public and the business park as well. So that is a plus. It needs to include a bathroom, restrooms. If you don't, people are going to find a place to, you know, when you got your 2 or 3-year-old that says, "Mommy, mommy," you know, they're going to go find a place. So please find a way to include a restroom. Heidi brought up another good point about the fiscal responsibility and the HOA fees. There are horror stories all over the United States about HOAs that don't manage their finances well. They don't charge enough. And so ultimately they say, well, we're going to cut back on park maintenance because we need to put in new roofs, something like that. I'm not sure how you deal with that. And hopefully our attorney and your attorneys can make sure that there is a way to ensure that park maintenance is up to San Ramon standards. You know, Bishop Ranch has a level of quality that they've maintained over decades. And while they're going to retain ownership of some or nearly all of the Citywalk project, I believe that Summerhill, while you may be a neighbor, there will come a time when you have sold the last unit, you turned everything over to the HOA, and the HOA now has to manage itself. That needs to be managed well. The sidewalks up to Norris and Executive Parkway, thank you very much for doing those. And thank you, Cindy, for explaining how when this is done that the Toyota extension will happen as well. I really want our staff to sharpen their pencils and do the calculations on credits and how credits are calculated and how values are calculated. I want to make sure that the citizens of San Ramon get their value. Somehow, when you take 2.25 acres and you get roughly $6 million of credit out of that, I'm not sure quite how that worked. So I want staff to be able to work down those numbers and confirm that the citizens of San Ramon will get the value that we should be getting for our parkland. See, I have anything else there? Yes, and it is very important that the Parks and Community Services Commission and Carol Lopez Lucy has been, how long you been on this, Carol? You've been on for more than 15 or more than 17 years, I know that. And they have done a fabulous job of programming parks. They know what they're doing. Our city staff knows what it's doing, and our Parks Commission knows what it's doing. I want them to be intimately involved in programming of what goes into that park, and before it comes to council, the Parks Commission is your key resource working with city staff on programming of the park. But I think you really do need to put in a restroom, because people will use a restroom even if it's not there. It's happened in some of our other places around town where we have less than adequate facilities. Thank you.
Okay, I know that Sabina wants to speak, but I'm going to jump in before we get any of this. I want to be as clear as I can on the direction that I feel this project should go. No bathroom, no basketball court. What you might want to do is take a real good look at the bathrooms that we have at the transit center and maybe beef them up a little bit, plus the ones that we have here at 7,000 Bollinger Canyon Road. To me, the people that are from the public, not living there, that are going to be using that park are likely going to be coming from the Iron Horse Trail, or they're going to live in Citywalk. That's what we should be focusing on. Do you need the bathrooms? Yes, they're not necessarily. It becomes another problem. The basketball court, I knew when we picked City Hall here that if we left that basketball court here and we were building these homes, that we would have about as many emails as we have for Marketplace on problems with the basketball court and the lights, et cetera, et cetera. This is a nice park. I like it. Maybe I see it different than others. The tot lot, I could, take it or leave it. I wasn't wild about the tot lot that went into the old country fair, and a different person who was on council who will remain nameless said we had to have that park and it didn't fit any of our criteria. And I wish that we had left it in the HOA, but that's the way it went. Greystone Ranch has one that's seldom used. I mean, tot lots, either they work or they don't. I don't know how to put it. So you pick whichever one you want, but I'm telling you, we've got more basketball courts close to those 5,000 homes than we've got anywhere else. What I really like about the location, call me crazy, Will, location has something to do with real estate, is the location, how close we are to 2 different membership sports clubs and a third up the hill. And those people are going to be more inclined to look at that, and the Iron Horse Trail. That is the single best section of the Iron Horse Trail. And the plan that Alexander had for it makes it even tenfold above that. I don't want to go crazy about this and making different things. I understand that the walkway and work it out. But I can tell you one thing that this council had better make up their mind on. We're not going to reduce one home in there because we still have to find more. We are hit with a number that is astronomical in the next 8-year cycle. And I see no way out of it by adding more park and less housing. As far as the money, I went into this before when we were doing Citywalk, the negotiations on that. If we've got something we're telling the city manager to do, hopefully we did it in a timely manner before we do that, but rearranging at the end, I won't buy into it. I think, and that's my direction, that the only question we have here before we proceed is the tot lot. I'm satisfied with this project. Sabina, you're up.
Awesome. So one comment, I think one of the, and Denise, I really want to say thank you for doing the presentation. I agree, every time you've come with a presentation, you've done an excellent job of presenting the plan to us and have been very detail oriented. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
The thing I love about that corner is that there's a lot of redwood trees. So my ask would be, to be able to keep as many of them as we possibly can, because I think it's that, that whole area along Camino Ramon and the redwood trees really do add a lot of value, and, we continue to lose some of them. So that was just an ask. And then I would love to see how the parkway can be connected, how we can use some of the money to really continue that parkway from Citywalk into this development as well. I understand, some of it might be back on the city to do, and we can, kind of look at that. But so, I don't know how many of you are familiar with what they created in Atlanta, essentially a belt line where it runs along these neighborhoods. And I've heard the excitement in people's voices that live along that, saying how much they just love that connectivity. I know EDAC and some of us have talked about downtown. I don't know if it'll technically be a downtown, but I really think, Commissioner Heidi mentioned as well, that kind of connectivity so that it feels like a whole and not kind of a side project. So that's one of my reasoning for exploring the parkway and see how we can kind of build a connectivity with Citywalk so that everything along Camino Ramon kind of looks like a whole and not kind of a disconnected. So that's
Heidi 2.
Hmm?
Was that Heidi 1 or Heidi 2?
I think they both mentioned it. So
Well, let's hear from Heidi 1 also. You're up.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for this detailed presentation. I'm actually having a little bit of fun on your website, taking a look at some of the other communities you've built. And there's some really exciting elements there that I really appreciate and help give me a little more vision of what you're planning. Obviously, you're going to get some contradicting feedback. I will say that as a member of our community that lives in the Doherty Valley in Windermere, I live next to one of the only parks in the city of San Ramon that does not have a bathroom. And I am in favor of a bathroom at the park or near the park. Now, I live on a hill, and so it wasn't always fun having to go back and forth with my kids to take them home. But I think there's value in that. And otherwise, I would at least like you to look at the proximity, obviously, because what I'm going to go back to is a prior point one of the commissioners made, which is nobody from Windermere is going to come to this, or maybe not quite that straightforward that will never happen. I still would like to see more intentionality or a decision as to whether this is a community unto itself that's connected to our community, or if this is part of our larger vision of that walking district, the Citywalk, the accessibility. When I think about us building the city center and putting in the work and Central Park and the Iron Horse Trail, I see that whole area as a destination, particularly for some of us who don't live there, but certainly for those that do, where I would imagine going down with my kids or friends and walking around. And I would want to know if this was part of that plan. Is this part of the area I'm going to go take my walk, take my run, whatever it is? And then for those that work in the Bishop Ranch area, I also see this as an area where they would take their employee recesses, go for a walk, et cetera. So I think I would like to see us be intentional. Are we building this as a community unto itself, in which case we don't need to necessarily cater to everybody else, but maybe coincidentally there are some amenities? Or are we building this more part of the larger plan, the larger community? And we would hope and expect that people are out on their walks will continue along that way, in which case I wouldn't count the paseos necessarily. To me, those are kind of for the residents to go in and out of, but not necessarily on a walk. I think that's really what I want to better understand is which direction are we going? I will tell you from my excitement in learning more about the walking district and, you know, having moved here 15 years ago, we've been hearing about this city center and the downtown. And the one thing I really, really miss about San Ramon compared to some of our other local cities is not having a central downtown. And when City Center came in and we've had this master plan and this discussion, and I've walked it as what we're planning, I'm excited about it. To me, that is a place that connects. So I hope that this development, which looks exciting, is going to be looked at as part of that larger downtown, if you will, community. And if so, I'd like us to look at how that can better function. While bikes in some cases should be on dedicated bike lanes and bike paths, I would like us to have intentionality. If this part of the community is meant for people to go through on their walks and cycles and whatever, then we should be designing the walkways, the sidewalks where bikes and pedestrians or runners can share the space. I don't know where all the basketball courts are. I'm going to be totally honest about it, but I do think that if they are not in close enough proximity, I think it's a great idea for kids. And I also think, you know, for teens. And then again, for the folks working to be able to go outside and play a little bit is a great thing. But I'm not familiar on the map with where everything is. So I think my big ask is, which way are we going? I personally would like us to see it be part of the larger community and try and design it with elements that make sense. Thank you.
Carol Lopez Lucy.
Yes, I'm kind of with, I'm definitely with the everyone on, I really think there needs to be a bathroom. I mean, when you have little children, I think you just have to have it, even if it's only 2 acres. And I still think, like you were saying, Mayor Hudson, to go around on the transit there where they have bathrooms, but I don't think that will happen actually. But I do, that's one of my things. And I really am also concerned about the tot lot getting credit on there, because I think that's something that's specifically to the people in that area, because I don't think you'll find other people really going in there to use just that little tot lot. And so I would have to say, I like the two acre park. I too feel it should be all inclusive with what's going on in that area to make it so it's inclusive and included, not just a little area for the residents that live there. So I would consider that we should really look at the tot lot for the credit that they're asking for, and the bathroom, and to have it to be inclusive of the walking district, and that to all blend in together. And that would be my feeling. I think they have a good plan and have a lot of good details. So, but at the tot lot, I'm really up in air about whether we should give a credit for that. Thank you.
Julie Osland.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. I have a few notes here in front of me, and I have a few comments and questions that I want to ask, but I just want to start off with similar to Commissioner Birnbaum about being a park commissioner. It's an important role for our community, and we act as stewards and guardians of our parks and open spaces. And I'm very proud to be a commissioner for the city of San Ramon with that role. And I'm also really proud to have been a part of the master plan creation, and how our city involved our residents in the creation of our master plan and really listened to what the community wanted within our parks and community services. And so we listened, and our master plan supports what the community wants. And Commissioner Keniston Lee mentioned one of the principles of the master plan is interconnected. And that word really resonates with me when I think about this project. I feel that we need to keep in mind, and I love using that word intention. And I think that that was kind of what was missing for me as I was looking at this development and the plan around it, that I want to see connections. I want to see not just paths around it, but I want to see it going in it. And I'm not seeing that so much in the site plan. Now, I know it was explained about the paseos and the other little walkways that come in, but I think for me visually, and just from the experience of being a part of this development, I kind of want to feel like I'm part of it, and I want to be able to walk through it like people walk through my neighborhood. And I don't get that sense with what I'm looking at with the site plan as it is today. I feel that that is what our community is asking for, is to be connected. And so even if you're living here, you're going to be walking out to the main street to go to the city center, or go to the grocery store or post office, or wherever you're going. So I'm wanting to see really kind of like, I love that word, what's the intention? Are we keeping this separate, or is it part of a bigger vision and plan to connect all of us? I think part of what I had visualized was kind of like Inverness Park, Greenbrook and Danville, just kind of like how they have these nice walkways with trees and some benches, and kind of more passive areas to enjoy the surroundings. We talked about the walking district, and I think that really hits the nail for me, where I'm wanting the walking district to be a part of this, but I don't know really what the big vision is and what the plan is. And I think that's important that we integrate the two. Something that, well, no one's brought this up yet, but I'm a little concerned about the location of the park. I feel that it is a little bit out in the open and in the evenings with these homes around it, so close to it. It could present some issues just from ne'er-do-wells looking for a place to hang out. I don't know if there's any thoughts about possibly setting it back just a little bit. I love the idea that Councilmember Zavar said, keeping the redwood trees, really keeping what's there to give it some boundaries, but yet openness to avoid any kind of risky type of behavior. And you did mention in your presentation, Denise, I was curious, I couldn't really tell from the site plan if the backyards faced the park or if the front of the homes faced the park. And so that, are they all facing park areas and pathways? I'm not really clear on that. But I feel that in a community, you want to look at the park and not necessarily have it in your backyard over your fence. I think the other piece that I wanted to mention was that internal piece, bringing people in to the development, but what is our intention? And I guess my overall comment, in my notes here were creating more passive spaces for groups to get together, walk your children, walk through the area, perhaps ending up at the park if it's set back a little bit, but also dovetailing that into the walking district. My final comments, I guess, are, well, two comments here about the credits. I really, I'm concerned about the longevity of our park development fund and our funding for our parks. And Commissioner Birnbaum alluded to that, we have these three parks that we've talked about. We have a master plan. We have details and ideas in our master plan. And I want to keep those first and foremost. And I want us to really be very careful about how we make a decision with giving credit as opposed to, getting the funding and fees. And then my final comment here is about the HOA involvement, the private, what is it? Anyway, the POPOs. And I actually, personally, I serve on the board of my neighborhood HOA. And it's a tough job. And we have a lot of turnover on our board. And then you have new people come in and there's, things can get very uneven. And I just think that it's a big burden for the community to have a public park that they need to maintain. And I think it's something that we very seriously need to take a look at what's in there. And is that fair to the people that are buying in this neighborhood? Because I really feel that it can be risky and be a huge challenge. And I know from fact that CCNRs can be revised. The HOA that I'm a part of and on the board, we are working on that now with legal counsel. So things can change, even though we say it's in perpetuity, they can be adjusted. So I do have some concerns about the community, the residents in the neighborhood, having that as a possible burden. So I would be interested in hearing more information on success stories around this, but that's basically my feedback and my comments.
Sridhar Barros.
Thank you, Dennis, for the presentation, and thanks, commissioners and council for excellent feedback. So definitely having 2.25 acres of park in this community will definitely add a good quality of life for the residents. But I am in line with Vice Mayor Perkins. I see this like 2/4 acre, 2 acres, 2.5 or 2.25 acres of park. I'm paying $6.5 million. That's how I look at it. So I definitely want our city staff to go back and check out whether it is worth that we are going to pay that kind of money on this. So that's one. And also one more thing is about the thought. Already fellow commissioners and council members mentioned about their opinion, and I'm also in aligned with that. That the thought park is going to be mostly private. So I don't see how it can be part of the credits. And one more thing is about 2.2 million for amenities. I need to get some breakdown on that. I know this is too early to understand, but definitely I need to understand what are the breakdown like for development, amenities, and also breakdown between 2 acre and the quarter acre. So I need to understand that piece. And today we are talking more about the parks, but one of the feedback that I got from the community is, especially during this COVID-19 situation, a lot of people are using parks in the evenings for walk. So they are preferring to have lights in the park. So if that can be one of the feedback that I continuously get from the community, so that they can use for walk in the park in the evenings. And also, as we are talking about parks, but then the community, another important community feedback that I got is especially from seniors. A lot of our seniors, they love to live in San Ramon and they want to continue to live. But then they want to move out of their big houses so that they don't have to take care of lawn mowing and all that, and move to some smaller space, and which is close to the downtown, so that they can just walk to grab a coffee or lunch or dinner with the family, and avoid public transportation and all that stuff. So I think whatever the size of housing that you are looking at, the townhomes and all that, that makes sense, but bigger sizes in this location, for me, I think you guys need to really reconsider looking at how you can provide more housing for our seniors and also millennials. I know it will be already after 2 years, it will be very challenging for our millennials to get any housing in San Ramon. And with bigger size, it will become much more tough. I'm not saying it will be easy for them. Even with a smaller size, it will become definitely challenging. So if we can look at like something like 1,500 square feet homes and all that, that will be great. One more thing is I saw like it is a 3-story buildings, right? So even if for seniors, it can be challenging to use. So it will be nice if we can add ADA units within the units, so that it can be accessible for our seniors. So that's some of the feedback that I received from our seniors and millennials.
Will Dorlich? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sridhar. I thought you were finished. Will?
Sridhar is good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
So yeah, just a couple of comments. Bathrooms, I think 90% of the usage is going to be residents, and they'll probably want to go back to the home if they're going to use the restroom rather than a public restroom. But and there's also city center, 2 or 3 blocks away. Tot lots are like dog parks. You may think you're going there to walk your dog, but you're actually going there to meet up with the other humans. And tot lots, if I remember way back, is much the same. So whether it's a tot lot or just a gathering place is great. And I think we also need to take a look at other similar infill projects within other communities. I'm thinking of Uptown, I'm thinking of Auburn Grove, I'm thinking of Portola Common, Montage, Tranquility, Sage, just look in Westport Village area in Dublin. And this is, very much a better concept and a better design, because it is fitting within the community, and there is a continuity between the Citywalk and this project. So I think that's good. Regarding the HOA, again, there are state requirements, and the management of this is not going to be by the HOA board members. It's by the professional community association that manages areas like this. So while there needs to be, not necessarily concern, but just awareness of that, I wouldn't have as much concern as my other commissioners regarding that. The 0.25 as far as the fees go, I don't know if we broke that down to what the actual dollar difference is, what the delta is. But I think having that little area in between does set it off. Regarding the homes facing, this has a motor court design. So all the facing of the homes, the front of the homes, go out to sidewalk areas or et cetera. And the motor courts, have just the traffic and the garages. And the reason I brought up Faria before was that, our mission tonight was to look at the proposed conceptual park design, and pun intended, not get in the weeds. So this is so far ahead of the specifics and the particulars within the actual park areas that I think we need to get back to, do we like the concept? Do we like the overall, vision? And if that is so, then we should move forward with it and then look at the details as we go forward, because we're several years away. And just as with Faria, we looked at where does the park sit? Where is the orientation? What kind of, size requirements are there? Then we'll get down into the details in, subsequent meetings. So, if we're ready to go forward, I think we should recommend, that we move forward with the proposed conceptual park design this evening.
Okay, Mark?
All right, thank you. And thanks, Denise, for your presentation. I was pleased to see the effort to holistically look at the area relative to Citywalk and a walking district. But, I agree, there should be more intentionality to me. As described, to me, it sounded like the connectedness to the walking district is mainly along the parkway along Camino Ramon, or that future sidewalk along south side of North Canyon Road. And honestly, I don't think the paseos will really provide access to the public for it really to be considered in support of the walking district concept. I agree with Commissioner Osland. I think we have a chance to now design a walking path or some kind of a linear park that goes north-south through the development, that it's enjoyable, it's beautiful, it's fun. It's not just not just something where right now where walkers really are going to end up going around the perimeter of the park, of the development on sidewalks. So I think before this moves too far, there should be some consideration of something like over at Inverness Park. You've got homes there, they're facing inwards toward a meandering path. Neighbors can be out there walking their dogs, or they can meet up. Kids can go out and play. It would tie in nicely to the whole walking district vision if it kind of cuts through that development. Plus, it gives the neighbors an opportunity to look out their window and see what's going on. It's like a built-in neighborhood watch, or and frankly, it will kind of lead to overall a safer neighborhood through built-in surveillance. Others have commented on the $2.2 million credit. I think though, I'd like to see the city, get those funds, and frankly, other in lieu of funds, I think can be used for, as I think Commissioner Birnbaum mentioned, the Woodlot or Henry Ranch, or to potentially maybe even purchase some open space in the future. So it's a beautiful design. It's a lovely presentation. I would just love to see maybe an alternate course of action where there's some kind of a Inverness Park-like meandering path that goes through the center, and just rearrange the development to kind of shape around that. Probably get the same number of units in there. May not get the 2-acre park on the end, but that's my thought.
Yeah, I've got 2 more people want to speak, but I cut this up. I think we're getting crazy here. There is no way we're going to build an Inverness Park or a Greenbrook through this. It doesn't work, folks. We are a transit-oriented development for a business park with 400 units, and we need about 800, if not more. You're designing a plan when the issue in front of you tonight is exactly what Will just said, the conceptual plan for the 2-acre park. We're trying to put a different kind of park in there. Then we're trying to rebuild it. There is no way you can do Inverness Park in 400 units. Now, if you think we're going to cut it down to 40, then make that plan tonight. And Martin, you'll be a very busy person in the morning when we go back and take a look at what the rights of the developer are. It's all on the developer. They're the ones that have to come through for us to do this development first. What park fits this development? Now, I made a statement earlier that you have a bathroom closer to this park than the houses that are on the west side of this development. Maybe we could work with that and make something more receptive to the 10% that Will said would be coming in. I think it's closer to 4 or 5% that would come off the Iron Horse Trail. They also have bathrooms here at 7,000. But if we're going to put a bathroom in this park that's what I would consider relatively passive for that development that is being proposed, I got about 50 emails to put one at Walt Disney. I'm betting that Joe's probably got a half dozen more for different schools around the town that want a bathroom. But the worst part about it is I couldn't imagine living in there that I had to pay for a bathroom for 5% of the people that might be using it. Because if it's privately done, that's who's going to pay for it. We need to get back on the conceptual plan, how we feel about that, and stop redesigning this development. Okay, Scott Roberts and then Scott Perkins.
Mayor, I appreciate your feedback. I'd sure love to kind of at least hear the developer's perspective on that, or at least give them the opportunity to consider it before we outright dismiss it. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Let's stay with you and I for a minute, Mark. Are you saying you want to get their perspective to do an Inverness Park, a low density development there?
No, I didn't say a low density development. And maybe it's not quite the full. I'm talking about a meandering path, Inverness Park type that goes through the development.
Okay, so I'm looking around and nodding. You're saying there's 2 acres of park that we're dealing with right now for this whole development, and you're saying scrap what's in front of us and come back with something that meanders through there.
I would like to see that if it's possible. I don't know how far along this is, but I think that's why we're having these meetings, for us to all throw the ideas out there and give feedback.
No, Mark, it is the reason. But what I'm telling you is what, maybe I read too much of this legislation, but I'll leave it at that. We have 3 speakers and then we'll let the developer respond to it. Starting with Scott 1 and Scott 2. You guys can pick who's 1 and who's, I think Roberts is first.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So first, I too agree with the tot lot situation. As I read through the information, I really didn't see the value for the community at large. So I'll weigh in on that. And I want to give particular credit to planning and parks departments for relocating this project to a more accessible location. I think that's obviously really important for this discussion and for the community. The issue that I have is understanding the value in interconnectivity of the park itself. So it appears that the connectivity at this point is really via busy streets and a couple of sidewalks. And that kind of goes against what the whole idea of the walking district has been for the last few years. So I'll quickly just remind everyone of the opening comments again from the forum that we just had. The city recently hosted a walking district charrette and citywide forum. And I'm concerned the walking district and this project are trying to sort of intersect, I guess, in some way versus actually work together. So the question asked was, when you think of the walking district, what comes to mind? And 2 answers, a variety of interconnected experiences, 1, and 2, multi-destination walking, something that is so interconnected that spontaneity is possible. Ability to window shop, stop for coffee, enjoy a park in a casual and unplanned way. What I hope to see, okay, so what I really hope to see is more detail about the walking and biking paths and loops that connect this park and maybe other parks in this vicinity to the lake, Central Park, other treasures that we have in this area, so we can be sure to incorporate everything that we've been working on so hard in this walking district committee for the last few years. So thanks, Mayor, for allowing me to have a couple minutes there.
Oh, that's okay. We'll give you more. Scott Perkins.
Thank you. I'm very glad that Sridhar brought up the issue of the size of the units. And while I would love to see more units, I would love to see some smaller units. I think the 3,000 square foot units are oversized for this site. I'm not going to, you guys know your business model, you've sharpened your pencils, you know what will sell, but I think having more smaller units would serve the community and the need better. 4-bedroom units are going to attract a lot of children going to a school, an elementary school that's not very close. I'm not sure quite which school they go to. Maybe Will Dorlet, knows. But is it Twin Creeks? Is it Montevideo? Is it Bollinger Hills? Is it Golden View? But
Twin Creeks and Montevideo
are quite a ways away, and so that will add to the traffic congestion at those schools just by virtue of the fact that you can't. Those little ones aren't going to be able to walk to school. They will be able to walk to Iron Horse, and down Iron Horse Trail they can get to Cal High. But by having lots of bedrooms, you're going to encourage lots of kids, lots of little kids. So I would love it to see 450 units and go a little smaller, but that's me. Thank you, Sridhar, for bringing that up.
Will Dorlich?
Yeah, Scott, the actual answer is look on the website, because each school is ruled by classroom size. And I have clients who have, a 3rd grader and a 5th grader, and they go to different schools because of the classroom size. So you never want to tell anybody which school is closest for that. And I just wanted to reiterate, we're not talking about an R1, zoning development. This is an urban style development. And they're called row houses for a reason, because they're in a row and it's a straight row. If you go to San Francisco, they're row houses. If you go to Georgetown in Washington, D.C., if you go to any urban area where they have stoop homes or townhomes like this, there's no meandering walks. It is a straight line. That's why they're called row houses. And this is an urban style development. So we need to look at it through that lens and not look at it through the suburban lens of San Ramon, because we're in an urban style development. That's number one. And number two, we're talking about units. We're talking about size of units. We're talking about, how many units. We're not talking about the park. If I'm going to be on the planning commission, I want to get twice the money.
Yeah, I think the thing that we haven't brought up also that does affect the school situation that you're discussing, Scott, 1 or 2, you can figure it out, is that the transit in Bishop Ranch is all paid for, whether you live or work there. And I'm 99% sure that when we're through with this, traffics will likely be involved also. But the question was asked of the developer what they felt about doing an Inverness Park, Greenbrook type design in there. And I guess I should step back and, I'm sorry, Heidi, do you want to ask something first? You're on mute.
Hang on. Yeah, I just wanted to circle back with what Councilmember Safar said with regard to the redwoods. And one thing I'd like for us to keep in mind is the fact that one of our priorities in the Parks Master Plan is to celebrate nature. So I appreciate that the applicant is working to do that. To Commissioner Dorlick's point, yes, this is an urban development, I think as we look at things like parks as they relate to urban developments, I think we need to really go to our core values, and we need to talk about how do we keep it natural? How do we celebrate nature? And while at the same time embracing, our arena numbers and being able to develop in an urban environment where we achieve our numbers. So I felt like on many levels, the concept does celebrate much of what our Parks Master Plan suggests. But I really appreciated that Council Member Safar did talk about the redwoods. And I think the real trick, and I think we can almost be a best practice model for other communities, is a way to do urban development that meshes with our overall look and feel of our community in San Ramon, where we value parks. So I just wanted to kind of wrap up with that one. Thank you.
Well, I will say before they answer that we do value the parks, but we also value and read the legislation that's coming down from Sacramento. And a transit-oriented development that's set up for transit is virtually all they want. There is no, I mean, if you're not 16 homes per acre or more, you're wasting your time coming in with a development for the most part. Of course, you could fight it and they'll double the number, but that's another story. Anyway, you've heard the proposal. Oh, Sabina, you've got something. I can't get past it. One more person. And don't say a quick question.
It is not. It's going just, I guess, to wrap up the comments. I think what we're all striving for here is to continue to maintain a quality of life for San Ramon residents. And I think that's what we're all advocating for. And so Denise, as you look at it, that's really our purpose. Continue to maintain that quality of life that San Ramon residents love and live in San Ramon for. So just wanted to close off with that. Thank you.
They sure seem to be loving it over at Salt and Straw too. So everybody that buys a house gets a $100 gift certificate for ice cream. Anyway, a suggestion was made to, I don't want to say redesign it, but and I'm not even sure that the developers know where Inverness Park is or Greenbrook, but we're talking about a green belt right through the middle of it. Is that fair enough, simple enough to discuss? Mark, you're kind of looking at me.
Yeah, a green belt, but I'm not talking about a massive, wide thing per se. It's more of a meandering type path. And I hear the urban development comments, great comments, but it's either feasible or it's not feasible or it's not feasible.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see if the developers had some comments on that.
And that's why I stopped short at that point. There's more than one person that asked for it, but I need to get it clear because I think they're probably going to ask the same thing. Would that be in lieu of the 2-acre park?
Now, from my perspective, it could be in lieu of the 2-acre park in order to buy back space for the additional housing that it might take up.
So. Okay. I can tell you right now, if you're going to reduce the number, I will be a no on this vote, but that's not the park. So anyway, Kevin, Jerry, Robert, Denise, anybody got a comment on Robert, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'll comment. First of all, thank you for the time tonight, and I appreciate all of the input. It's very helpful to us. We looked at numerous alternatives for the park location, and in collaboration with staff, we determined and do believe that the location on the corner as shown is most appropriate, in part because it invites the community at large to that space. If it was buried in the middle of the community, it would be hard pressed to say that it's accessible and inviting. I think one of the things we can look at, and A Street, which runs through the center of the project, and then the entrance off Camino Ramon, I think we can look at how we make it more inviting to the public through maybe monumentation, maybe widening the sidewalks a little bit at those points. So you've challenged us on the connectivity, you've challenged us to look at how we can invite people into the community. I think we can do some enhancements in that regard, but I'm a firm believer that the park location and size is totally appropriate. I won't negotiate against myself typically, but I'm happy to concede the credit on the tot lot. I think that was a great planning commission suggestion, and it is most likely going to serve just our community. I'm a long-term believer in relationships, and I want to create a great relationship with the city of San Ramon, so we're not going to fight over that particular item.
I want to put something in here. I forgot. I just realized, I don't know if anybody has been on the commission or the council long enough. Alexander Marin, when he first became president, has a great plan for the Iron Horse Trail. I know Scott has, because Scott asked me for this plan. And I almost wish that that were more of the consideration we were looking at, because that trail, if you think it's busy now, you just wait until we put that overpass in and the bike traffic starts coming down here. That's why I start pushing for the bathroom where it is, and maybe doing something closer to that, because I don't think we're 100 feet from the park. The other thing is I know, I mean, I got it at the golf course, I got it at Walt Disney. Anybody that's close to an elementary school, they're going to want these things too. And that's where the little leagues are. That's where the basketball courts are, things like that. I mean, we were one of the first ones to come in with kind of the tot lot at the schools way back when. And now that we took out the temporaries or the portables, we've got people screaming for that. And if we put another one that close to the one we have there, anyway, that's you. Any further comments on it? Sabina, I think you had your hand up.
I'll just say thank you, Robert, for taking a look at that A Street area, if there might be some enhancements there, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, we challenge ourselves all the time, and then when we have a meeting like this, we always get some not only additional challenges, but the plan will end up better if we can take your ideas and incorporate them in ways we may not have considered. There are some challenges, but I think the staff has been great to work with, and I think we can come back and make you more excited about some of the ideas we come up with.
Thank you.
Anything else before I make a last minute comment and ask if anybody wants to move forward or we're dealing with page 8 from the staff report for the most part. Those were the comments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Scott, go ahead. Perkins.
I want to thank Summerhill and our city staff for a really fruitful presentation and discussion. While we made some critical comments, I think that it is universal that the Council and Parks Commission and Planning Commission all like the proposal. And each one of us has a slightly different, vision for what that is. But I think we can agree that with Summerhill and Sunset Development and city staff and the Parks Commission and the Planning Commission, we'll end up with a really good project. And we're very grateful that you guys are here to do it for us. Thank you.
Okay, Don, you got another point?
Well, Scott made a very broad brush comment, and I would have to say that I'm not in total agreement. I believe Summerhill did a beautiful job of presenting things, and I appreciate their willingness to take input and make changes. But to make the statement that everybody's in agreement with the proposal, I would have to take notice on that.
Thank you. I will just add one last thing. It is really difficult to sit back or step back, even the developers, the owners, the property owners. The world has changed so drastically since October even, when we got hit with some RENA numbers, but it's a philosophy that has been going on for the last 10 or 12 years. I almost feel like the frog that's been sitting in the pot and the water keeps getting turned up. Well, we're right around boiling right now. And this state, particularly the Bay Area, has made it clear that this kind of development through priority development areas, through transit-oriented development, the Citywalk and this in combination is exactly what they want, to the point where we may be pretty darn close to the term that we should all fear, build by right. And I was really impressed when I saw that first. I see the details of what a lot of people want. I mean, I would love, I could sit there and listen to what Julie was saying earlier and say, yep, that's what I want. That's what I wanted 30 years ago as a licensed real estate agent. But we're not Danville anymore. Danville can't even do that. It's a terrible thing when you are limited in scope as we are. And I really want to give the kudos to planning and the park staff for putting this together at this point. This is, to me, as good a starting point to work off of as there is. I'm acceptable of all 5 points on page 8. The tot lot, you can keep it or throw it out, or, you know, we'll hit it perfectly. It's the kind of thing like a dog park. People go outside and gather. And I never would have believed it until every day I'm over at City Center, and that what is happening there is exactly what was planned. And I feel this is part of it. Now, the walkways and how they work in, I think you'll probably be working on for ever and a day if this project goes forward, and I'm hoping it does, and it'll probably get changed. This is what we do from planning to reality as we see what we want and can make a point. But the big connector that gets lost in this is the Iron Horse Trail, and the connectivity from this project, this park, to the Iron Horse Trail is as good as it is anywhere. It's as good as you might as well be at Walt Disney tot lot going over there. It's that close. So take a look at it from now and then. And Heidi 1 wants to chime in. Go ahead.
I just want to reinforce, thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback and guidance. I don't even want to call it constructive criticism. I think you came here tonight. My understanding is to get some guidance, to take our temperatures, to get a sense of what it is we would be looking for when you bring it forward. So while you may have heard some differing feedback, I think you have a pretty strong sense of some of the push-pulls, and I'm very much in favor of seeing this proceed and seeing the next iteration at the appropriate opportunity. And again, thank you for the opportunity to give you the guidance so that we can help you be successful in the most economical, both in time and money, timeframe format.
Thank you. And before we go to Heidi Kinnison Lee, let me remind you of kind of where we're going tonight. I don't have, where's my clock? Holy mackerel. But item 5 was, does the Parks and Community Services Commission recommend the proposed conceptual park design for approval? So Heidi, go off of that and we'll try and bring everybody back to the conceptual plan.
Okay, well, I wasn't specifically going to address the conceptual plan. What I did want to say is I appreciate the city council partnering with the Parks Commission and meeting with us at one time to address this, because I find that there are some times, with no malicious intent, that sometimes there's a disconnect. And I feel I appreciate that you value our input enough to want to have this joint meeting, to come to a meeting of the minds. So having said that, my personal opinion is that with the tot lot and with the 2-acre park, it would be nice if, as I believe Robert was suggesting, we could somehow get Street A or somehow get that meandering connectivity working. Because I don't know that I'd want to lose the 2-acre park, frankly, to that. But I do realize there's some space constraints. But my personal perception is that we're well on our way with the concept with the tot lot.
And let me add, I think what you're also saying, Heidi, because we kind of ran into this at Citywalk, is having so many staff members here, where they're the ones that have to negotiate those numbers that you saw. And we get to where we've come to an agreement, developer and staff, and then they come to us and we hear, now we want to change things. So I think having everybody tonight, the value is there that you were just speaking to, even more so because I hear Robert and Denise and whatever, they'll put their minds together and everything's looking good, and they come to Joe and say, we're not going to do this. It's good to have everybody together, but we still have to come back to that golden word, number 5. Are you willing to tell staff the proposed conceptual park design for approval, just the design?
I can move it.
No. But this is Parks Commissioners.
Okay.
That's what I'm reading here. Is that right? So it's on page 5. Does the Parks and Community Service Commission recommend the proposed conceptual? I mean, that is kind of what staff's looking for at the end of the day, I do believe. I'm seeing nods. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that the Parks and Community Services Commission recommend the proposed conceptual park design for approval as presented.
Do I have a second? Wait a minute. Who's the chair of Parks?
I am.
Well, you say it. No, I'll go ahead, Carol.
No, I can second that. I would have a discussion. I mean,
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
I'll
Now
second.
the discussion is item 5.
Okay, Mayor Hudson, now the discussion is, it's not my understanding, Debbie and Cindy, that you guys are actually looking for a formal action to approve the conceptual design. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yes, that's correct. So we're looking for direction and input and feedback. And so maybe I can just quickly summarize. I'm not saying there's been a majority amongst the parks and council members tonight, but it seems like there is direction to maintain the 2-acre park at its location. We like the tot lot, but probably not for park credit. And then thirdly, to really look at strengthening that Street A connection in the north-south direction, maybe some entry statements to really invite folks in, or looking at maybe a Parkway light, idea that we can, work with the developers and see if it's even possible based on constraints of the project. And then maybe looking at enhancing some of the Paseo connections from Camino Ramon, if that's possible. That's kind of what I've been listening to for the last couple hours and kind of what I've gathered up. That kind of seems like everyone's kind of migrating towards that. So that would be kind of my overall comments. And if that's the direction that you feel comfortable giving us, we're happy to take that and go back and meet with the developers and see how we can implement that.
And
So
Debbie,
moved.
well, no, wait a minute. Now,
Go ahead.
Debbie, if I may, the other element of that would be number one, that several council members and commissioners wanted some follow-up on the HOA question of whether there has been any conflict in that regard. So that would be one item the applicant and staff might come back to us with. And then I would want to know from Council Member Armstrong, because if I understand correctly, and Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong, you actually want to at least get an answer back as to, whether a really significant meandering parkway is feasible going through the project, even if even if it's at the risk of the 2-acre park. Are you still wanting to pursue that question?
Well, I do want to pursue the question. I mean, I got a partial answer to it already, but I don't think we want to give up the 2-acre park, but I do think the idea of looking at the A Street area and how that might be enhanced might be a good compromise to kind of tie into that whole walking district concept. And Mayor, I don't have a item number 5 on my agenda, so I'm not even sure why we're moving. I thought we were just giving feedback.
No, that is part of it for clarity, Mark. If I could just, for clarity, I'll read it. It was the recommend the proposed, and I thought that's what he said, conceptual design, is recommended to move it forward. It's not approved tonight. I mean, the Parks Commission is going to look at this thing in a more detailed manner. It was where I was going to go with hopefully the last 20, 30 minutes as I see blue hands coming up. Are the planned features of the 2-acre park appropriate also? Because we've also talked about lights, basketball courts, this kind of stuff. So Heidi, you still have the floor. Are you okay with that as we start moving forward, or you got some more? You're on mute. It was a great speech, but you're still on mute.
You missed some really the best stuff was when I just spoke. No, I actually do not recommend. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate, let's put it that way, moving forward with the vote. I don't think that's what's being asked of us by the staff. However, I feel like Debbie has very accurately summarized the general feeling of what folks have. And so, and then in addition, the specifics of the park properties.
No, I feel we have the direction if what I had spoken to the Council and Parks Commission, if you're comfortable with what we're going to go back and look at, then we have sufficient direction to keep moving forward with the project.
Okay. Let me put it a different way then, and Will's not there, so I can't get him first or second. But yeah, there he is. But what we're really saying is you're not saying, or you are saying, no, you're not saying to not proceed with this conceptual. You just want to see options also. And now I'm asking from the next 3 or 4 people that want to speak to address, before we get a little bit, are the planned features of the 2-acre park that we've been talking about appropriate? Because that's one of the questions, and I want to make sure that we've had an opportunity to give clarity to staff before it does get back to you. So I've got Heidi, your hand's still up. Are you still adding more? Are you okay? Will, you want to add something? And then Carol Lopez Lucy.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Is my hand up?
Yeah, so is Carol's. And the reason why it came down as a motion to do it that way is if somebody wants to say no now, it would probably be good for the developer to know that you got 5 votes that say no, or 3 votes that say no. That's why I thought it was appropriate. But you're not approving this project. But
no,
if you want to withdraw it and not do it, that's okay.
We're just saying the concept looks good. Let's move forward with the details.
Okay. Is that good enough for I'm looking at the Parks Commissioner. You don't need to do a vote, or you don't, that's okay. A nod is okay with you, staff? Or do you want to proceed with a vote on this?
I think Debbie just summarized what she's taken away from this. And I think that's exactly what they were looking for, feedback from us, which we've all given, and just go with that feedback. And I think that's it. We don't need to take any action as far as I can see.
If that's okay, we'll remove the first and second, but we do have 2 people that want to speak, starting with Carol Lopez Lucy.
Well, I was saying that is, I think, our concept. And I think that's where all we're going is we want to do that. So I don't think is what Debbie explained very correct, very explicitly. I think that's the direction, and I don't see we need a vote, but I think she's got the direction that we all need to go.
Okay, because I'm seeing nods from the developer. If they're not upset about it, I'm certainly not going to.
Then, Mr. Mayor, if we all agree on the concept and the nods have it, then I will withdraw my motion.
Okay.
And seek a recess.
Well, we're going to Don, because Don doesn't agree with the vice mayor, so he gets to chime in here. And again, if you have something to say about the features are appropriate, bring it up now.
Well, Mayor Hudson, I just want to go on record as saying I don't agree with the project. Okay, I don't agree with the fact that the city should forsake the fees that are their due for trading off for a 2-acre park that is basically across the street from 5 acres of park that we've already paid for. And so I don't feel that it's an appropriate give back to the developer, given the fact that the city needs the money for the development of those projects that I went through, and that they were identified by the city and by the Parks Commission as priority projects. So I've said my piece, and now I will be quiet.
Don, I would say don't be quiet. I think you're going to find a lot of people agree with you. The problem is we're going to have a battle when it goes to public comment. I can tell you right now who's going to come in and speak, but that's the way it is. Again, a last time through before we're going to let everybody nod off. There's not enough coffee in the world. Heidi, you got something about what were we talking about? What's appropriate?
Miss Kathy, the woodlot, the two parks that Commissioner Birnbaum are referencing, perhaps I'm getting confused because of the late hour, but have we not negotiated future development of those parks by sunset?
That's correct.
So Dawn, you might have concerns that that's going to be over a long period of time, and that, am I correct in assuming that you're hoping that
Heidi, there is
the mayor. Go ahead, Don.
There's only partial funding that was identified for those parks. It's not fully funded. And if you look at those two parks, and you look at Crow Canyon Gardens, $13.5 million would go a long way for making those parks a reality, or repairing, Crow Canyon Gardens. So, you have to look at the total economics of it. And Kathy, I don't believe those two parks were fully funded through the Citywalk projects.
Okay, last word is going to Jerry, because I think we're going to put Amrita to sleep.
So we did fully fund those two parks. Both the design costs and the construction costs to build those two parks were fully budgeted based on the cost given to us from the Parks Department and staff of what it would take to build those parks as they were designed to be built. So those were fully funded through the Citywalk development agreement. The only other thing I wanted to say, I do want to say thank you for everybody getting together and providing comments and feedback, which was really important for the developer and for us. And while we may not have unanimous support for everything, I think Debbie outlined very good common themes, I think, throughout for the majority of, I think, the folks on this meeting. And I want to thank Robert for the willingness to work and find common ground in some of these items. I do also want to state, while it probably wasn't identified as clearly as we could, and we can do that next time around in the future, but the connectivity of this development with the walking district and with Citywalk was very thoroughly designed and intentionally thought through. It may not have been presented in a way because we didn't really focus on that. We were focusing more on the parks on this presentation and not focusing on the interconnectivity between the walking district and Citywalk. But as a stakeholder, one of the largest stakeholders in the walking district, as it flows through Bishop Ranch, and sitting on the stakeholder meetings and where and how the connectivity of the walking district is going to work, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at the thought and the connectivity both through Citywalk, around Citywalk, and to this and through this development. Some of them will be through the public streets and the sidewalks, which is just like any neighborhood you live in. That's how you get to your neighborhood. That's how people walk through your neighborhood, is through the sidewalks. And they're going to be very nicely done here. There's going to be a lot of landscaping. So there is a lot of connectivity and a very intensely thought through connectivity with the walking district, with Citywalk and the rest of the city where the walking district goes. So I think you'll be surprised to see that detail. And we can highlight that more, since that's an important factor when we go into the next presentation. But really the focus tonight was about the parks.
I want to thank everybody for really speaking up. Wallflowers were not needed tonight. I don't think we had a lot of them. Sometimes it's just, how fervently you say it also. I don't think there's going to be anyone that doesn't know where Dawn's coming from, and that's good. I can tell you from sitting on regional boards, when people don't talk, you don't know. And so when something was brought up and, another counter came in, I think there was value in that. So unless there is some last minute dying wish, command, or pearl of wisdom that's going to come from the Parks Commission or the City Council, I would gladly adjourn this meeting, and I think you have all the direction you need, staff. Thank you all. We'll adjourn to the next meeting, which will be scheduled by the mayor, who won't schedule it unless you're very nice to him and get me that ice cream we were talking about. But thanks you all for coming out, and this meeting is adjourned.